introduce our main speaker. Then I'll introduce our main speaker of the evening.
Recording in progress.
When we recorded last week, we got to get rid of this echo, Kim. A month ago when we did this and recorded. How about now?
Reverb.
How about now? Is it? When we recorded last month, part of the problem was we didn't have everybody muted. So the sound quality was horrible, and I don't know if that's jinxing me for the moment or not. There, I think that's better. So what Ron and myself did was we went back and went through the slideshow again and recorded it with no live audience, no distractions. That will end up being part one and part two, the same information that we covered, but without the audio distractions that we experienced. We hope to have that available by the end of the week. You can go to our website, www.amtowri.org. And we plan on having that up by hopefully Friday of this week. So we did part one and part two a month ago. We're going to review that, but first I want to take a moment and introduce the concept of this cross training that we're doing. Hang on a second. It's this one right here.
Yeah.
People ask me, why are we doing fire and tower training together with EVs? And there's many reasons. One of them is they have many of the same interests. Another one is when Ron's discussing the construction of the automobile with firefighters in reference to rescue operations, a lot of the things he's talking about is critical information for towing operators, understanding exactly where the batteries are, the high voltage, etc. Also, as an industry, we talk an awful lot about the TIMS process, traffic incident management, which is an initiative by the Federal Highway Administration. We talk a lot about it, but we don't do a lot with that. So that's another reason we're doing this as a joint session. So I'm Wes Wilburn. I'm with the American Towing and Recovery Institute. I have the privilege of being one of your instructors, the instructor this evening. It's a privilege to be here. We've been involved in education for about 30 years in the towing industry. We do not know it all. I'm very, very proud to introduce to some and present to others Ron Moore, one of the world's leading knowledges on electric vehicles as far as I'm concerned. Ron, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background, if you would, please.
Thank you, Wes. My background is really in the fire service. I am now a retired fire chief. I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, city of Plano. My specialty has always been vehicle rescue, vehicle extrication, and I have evolved to kind of stay up to date on the electric vehicle challenges. I've also taught traffic incident management, and I realized that tow and recovery operators coming to the scene with police, fire and medical, I realized that we're all part of the same team. So I've learned to bridge the gap between what fire rescue does and thinks and how that impacts traffic incident management, primarily for the tow operators that are on the scene.
And you do a good job with that. Now, you were one of the group of instructors hired by Federal Highway to do the train the trainer and implement the TIMS training program years ago. Is that correct?
That's correct. And several years ago, I was one of the team members for what's now has been called SHARP, SHRP2. It now is the National Federal Highway Administration National Traffic Incident Management Program that is now in all 50 states. It can be modified or adapted or adjusted, but the core program, I was part of the train the trainer team.
All right, Ron. Kim, I'm not advancing the PowerPoint. I'm doing that. It's not progressing. So, Ron, give us a brief recap of part one and part two talking about electric and electric hybrid vehicles.
Got it. In that blue.
For any responders that go to an incident involving an electric vehicle, I've heard from tow operators particularly, I've heard if it's an EV, don't call me. So I've tried to bridge the gap and provide information. For one thing, we start off talking about terminology, things that you need to know if you're studying or following up on electric vehicles. And then there has been some guidance and some documents that are out there that are available. So I've been able to realize what's important for us as traffic incident management responders to a scene, particularly if there's an electric vehicle involved. What's important for us, and how does the fact that it's an electric vehicle affect our operations at the scene? This blue car that you see roof.
Rob, hang on, before we go there, just one more thing. Talk about the interim guidance and how long it's been available, if you wouldn't mind.
The federal government came out with, Federal Highway Administration, part of the federal government, came out with what's called interim guidance as a free downloadable PDF. There's a series of 3 of them. They have been available since January of 2012, and they've been modified. So no longer can any responder to an incident say, I didn't realize that the information was available. It's been since 2012 and I couldn't afford it. It's free, and I couldn't download it. It's simply a 3 one-page PDFs. So for one of the 3 that is important, 2 of the 3 are important, but one of the 3 that is important is for fire rescue, medical, and law enforcement, and tow and recovery. The second one that is out there is specifically for tow, recovery, and storage facility operators. Then the third one that is also downloadable, interim guidance for vehicle owners. It really isn't going to be specific or tell us anything new that we didn't know. So the 2 that you really need are interim guidance from NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA.gov. That's one place you can go. Interim guidance 2012, and it's been updated a couple of times, but that was the original document that came out.
That's good information that every tow operator and or fire personnel should have. All right, let's go to the first slide, Ron. Thank you so much for getting us caught up as well.
So I was up in Michigan, and this blue car that's roof resting is a Mitsubishi, and I was practicing in a tow yard, a storage facility yard. I was practicing stabilizing vehicles that are not on their wheels. Specifically, this is an MI EV, so it is a Mitsubishi electric vehicle. So I practiced and used some typical fire rescue equipment. You see the wood, what we call step chocks, cribbing blocks that are put in there to try to take the basketball type rock out of it. So at the time I got done learning what I could use to stabilize this vehicle, I went into the storage yard, which you see in the background, and I asked the tow operator, say, could you come out and please roll this car from the roof onto its side? I just want to continue to practice some stabilization work with a real electric vehicle on its side. Realizing the battery for this on this small car weighs just a little over 400 pounds, and it is a floor pan mounted battery. So what I found out in the experiment, what became realistic, is the fact that the center of gravity for electric vehicles is completely different than what you have on standard internal combustion engine vehicles. And that's because the weight of this lithium ion battery in this case is in the floor pan. It's below the floor. So next slide shows you the results. That's the Mitsubishi I. It would not go from the roof resting position to the side position. The weight of that lithium ion battery in the floor pan caused it to continue. So now in the next slide, you see I went to Tennessee, where they make the Nissan Leaf. You can also see the floor pan of the Nissan Leaf there. So what we're trying to do here at the Tennessee Fire Academy is just take a roof resting vehicle and get it to go onto its side. And I had 12 of these vehicles available, and we did 6 out of 6, And every time it went from roof resting to onto its wheels. And I truly believe it was because of the center of gravity being off. So for tow and recovery operators, if the vehicle, the electric vehicle is not on its wheels, be very, very careful, because the center of gravity is not what you or your employees might expect.
Yeah, a side resting vehicle, which I doubt you're gonna find many side resting or roof resting vehicles in the middle of the road, but if you do, that you need to remind everybody they're very unstable. Very unstable.
This is an incident where I talk to tow operators and I talk to fire rescue, and I say, if, for example, in this particular electric vehicle, this is a Tesla, it is a Model X. It has the what they call the gull wing doors. They're falcon wing doors now, because that's a more marketable term. But when I'm talking to tow operators in a class and I show this slide, this is an incident where the vehicle has apparently not damaged the lithium ion, the floor pan mounted lithium ion battery on the way in to crash into this retail building. So I say, so fire rescue, if this was the old days with an internal combustion engine vehicle, there are no injuries. Let's clear the ambulance. We got the building secured or stabilized, whatever necessary. Let's clear, let's get out of here. Let's leave. Let's get back to quarters. I say not so fast anymore. And for the tow operators, if the lithium ion battery wasn't damaged on the way in, it may be damaged on the way out. So this is an example where fire rescue and tow and law enforcement and medical all need to work together as a team to realize what the hazards or what the potential hazards are in this situation, and then how they might deal with it. In reality, what I might suggest, and I wind up suggesting to fire rescue that are in the training program, I say, call yourself last up, put yourself available, whatever it is, but you may want to stay there until the electric vehicle is completely recovered from the scene, completely back on its wheels, completely loaded back on the rollback or the light duty to be towed away, completely prepared. Stick around, because we're all part of this problem. If we leave early and there winds up being a problem in the recovery process, we will be called back. So let's stay right there and just deal with it. And that has held true many different times.
And when you say problem in the recovery process, you're talking about because of the unstableness of the battery, not necessarily the ability of the operator, correct?
Correct. The unstable lithium ion battery basically is floor pan mounted. It could essentially be right against the rocks. It says, don't damage me, don't bend me, don't crush me, don't hurt me, don't touch me, as you do the recovery process. So the recovery process may go through the normal procedure, but the whole idea is the risk of knowing where the lithium ion battery is, and the fact that it doesn't like us at all as responders.
If I could just add one more point, Ron, one of the things we're suggesting is to recovery operators, when you're connecting to a vehicle like this, use some sort of fuse. Some people use the insulators. I'm not sure that you definitely need that, but a polyester strap, a round sling or something, I believe will serve as an adequate fuse in case of a back charging. I just wanted to make that point real quick if I could.
Yeah, and what we find as fire rescue, not knowing the tow operator's abilities, we find that typically lifting the vehicle off that potential rock structure might be preferred rather than just simply dragging it rearward.
Oh, yeah, yes, absolutely, Ron. And the towing industry, sometimes that's a debate. People are picking cars out of situations. Is that necessary? Other people want to drag it out, but this, hook onto it and drag it. This is definitely a situation where hooking onto it and dragging it would not be the best situation. I know one situation where a tow operator on a Ford Mustang hooked to the battery drain with mini J's, thinking they were body frame hook holes, and it was $21,000 worth of damage. So that battery damage it isn't happening every day, but it is a real thing. So I definitely agree with your thought process about picking it instead of dragging it.
in all, from all of the manufacturers of electric vehicles, in all of their training programs, in all of their literature, they talk about submersion. One thing that everybody agrees on is if an electric vehicle it becomes submerged in water, and primarily they're talking fresh water, it will, the electric vehicle will not electrify the water. So it's not like an electric eel situation. There may be bubbling, there may be gurgling. They call it micro bursting. There may be that event may be occurring, but the vehicle itself is not going to cause anyone to be electrocuted that is touching or entering the water. So one of the common denominators from all the manufacturers is to attach to the vehicle, secure to the vehicle, get the vehicle out of the water. In fact, most of the training programs even recommend tilting it to drain it, opening doors, for example, and letting it drain, and then go about whatever normal protocol the fire rescue personnel want to deal with. So the bottom line is everybody agrees that you're not going to be electrocuted in the water, and you're not going to be electrocuted in the water touching the vehicle. It is the vehicle, the body, the shell of the vehicle is not electrified. Now, one of the common terms that is not mentioned is the fact that all of the guidance that comes from all of the manufacturers of electric vehicles is designed for fresh water. So we had the hurricane that struck Florida several months ago and caused vehicles to be submerged in salt water. So therefore, the salt water has turned out to be a kind of a crystallized, as it dries, crystallized, bridging the gap between contact point A to contact point B. And there may be something unique or different about submersion due to salt water in the drying process. So the National Transportation Safety Board got a bunch of the flood damaged electric vehicles from Florida that were submerged in salt water. They have taken them now to their lab, and they are in the process of trying to dissect what is different about submersion in fresh water compared to submersion in salt water. And the process winds up being, the difference winds up being in the drying or the draining process. This is a situation from Pasadena, California in January of last year, where the vehicle did go into fresh water. So it can be a lake, it can be a pond, it can be in this case it was a swimming pool, but it's fresh water. So just realize that whatever techniques or whatever equipment you tow and recovery operators have for working with law enforcement, medical, fire, rescue to recover this electric vehicle from the swimming pool in their backyard, then it's good. It's the same procedures essentially as you use for internal combustion engine vehicles. Now this is a kind of like a device. The red thing, it all folds up. It's like a device that is used in Europe. And what they do in this particular country is they will take a vehicle that is electric vehicle that is burning. They will put it in this tub, in this makeshift tub with the red wall around it, and then they will fill it with fresh water to a level enough to totally submerge the lithium ion battery. They're using that in that country. They're using that equipment and that technique for dealing with burning electric vehicles. Wes mentioned at the beginning of the program about traffic incident management. If you realize you're burning internal combustion engine vehicle incident, the difference between that incident and the burning electric vehicle incident, where they're going to use this submersion technique, the traffic incident management impact is significantly different. This may wind up being 3 hours, 4 hours, or in some countries, Belgium, for example, 24 hours worth of submersion soaking, as compared to maybe what your experience is in your community. A vehicle fire would be 30 minutes to an hour and be over and done with. There is a company that, and I don't sell or promote anybody's product per se, but there is a company called that's called that sells a tool called the Emergency Plug. I know of some tow operators that have purchased them. It is a very well designed tool. It shows in the top left image. It's just the handle, like as if it was a charger handle. It has electronics in it. It has a battery in it. It is well designed. It tricks the car, the electric vehicle, into thinking that it's plugged in. So all that really does is on electric vehicles that we have produced up through model year 2024, all that really does is automatically assures that before anybody gets in the vehicle, that the vehicle is in park. I get a kick out of the lower image. It's also an advertising image from Emergency Plug, even though their tool, which is about $1,000, let's say, even though their tool is designed to automatically trick the car and put it into park, they show wheel chocks. The situation that I've seen is the fire rescue and the tow operators believe that this is a cure-all. It is not a cure-all. It's a well-designed tool that does what it's designed to do only. It doesn't chalk or block the wheels anymore. This is an incident involving an ICE vehicle, internal combustion engine vehicle. It's a rear end underride where the internal combustion vehicle went underneath the butt end, back end of a slow moving tractor trailer truck. This is an interesting one, although it happened with an ICE vehicle, a gasoline powered internal combustion engine vehicle. The scenario that I'd like you to talk about and to assure that your entire response team is ready for it would be if this white vehicle was a pure electric, a battery electric vehicle. So in the process, the tow and recovery operator comes on scene. Fire has left the scene. Medical has left the scene. They actually flew this driver out critically injured. So that work has all been done. Tow operator comes in later in the incident. Law enforcement and tow are there, and the rollback is brought into position. They start to pull on the internal combustion engine vehicle. There is a small fire that then starts exactly where it would start with if this were an electric vehicle. So this is another example where the fire department in this particular scenario had to come back to the scene because during the recovery process by the tow operator using standard protocol on an ICE vehicle, it did catch on fire. And one of the unique things is that the tractor trailer truck operator, this is a European tractor and trailer, the tow operator or the truck operator pulled forward while the tow operator was holding on to the vehicle. So between the two of them, they figured out a way to deal with it. But this is an example of an incident that actually occurred. This one was in Germany. It actually did occur and would be just a good one to use as an underride case study to talk to your employees about how would we deal with it? This is the video that was shot of the incident. You can see extrication has taken place. There's a three rear axle vehicle. It is a German transport vehicle. The police have done their marking. The patient has already been flown to the trauma center, so that part's already done. There's nothing on scene now but law enforcement, and there's the tow and recovery operator. Now, in this particular situation, he uses the European version of the rollback. There's what shows the amount of intrusion. The rollback is positioned, and all he's trying to do in this case, well, all he's trying to do is just remove the two vehicles, to separate the two vehicles so he can tow the white vehicle away. It snags, he tries again, it snags again. A real simple solution here might be to deflate the front tires of the white car to lower it. He's going to use his crane type device that is on his tow operator truck. There's the flash fire. It was gasoline spill, gasoline ignited. The tow operator walks away from it. Now we have a gasoline fuel fed fire, exactly where we would have the lithium ion battery fire if it was in fact a battery powered vehicle. The guy here in the green coat is interesting. He's just he's what we would call a rider. He's doing a ride along with the police. He happened to be leaning earlier. You see him leaning against the guardrail, just watching there. And he wound up coming in with the fire extinguisher. One of the big issues with lithium ion in the electric vehicle is the fact that it plays possum. The fire may go out and it may reignite in a different location, which is exactly what's happening here. That's why I like this scenario. There's a good scenario for tow operators to run through as a case study. What do we do if we're in the process of moving or removing any vehicle, including ICE vehicle, as it was in this case, or electric vehicle, and the vehicle, while it's on our truck, while it's on our control, catches on fire? In this particular case, he uses his crane. He swings the vehicle off to the side. Police have already re-summoned the fire department to come back to the scene. Remember, they left completely. They come back to the scene, and now they're dealing with putting this fire out.
You're right, Ron. That is a good training for protocol to plan what you're going to do when things happen. Wow.
This is an incident that occurred that actually did involve an electric vehicle. It is a Tesla. He ran it right where that red Chevy is, kind of in the upper right section of the photo. This electric vehicle crashed into the end of this center barrier. It wound up being an electric vehicle fire, but it also wound up being a fatality. This is the first time that Mountain View Fire Department, which is right down the street from Tesla's in Fremont, California, right down the street from Tesla's Fremont facility. This is the first time that after they experienced the reignition, they wound up having an engine crew with water in their tank follow the tow truck operator who had used a rollback on this electric vehicle, followed them 20 some miles to the impound yard for the California Highway Patrol. This is the first time that the fire department had ever escorted the tow operator to the yard. The vehicle caught on fire at the yard. The battery is physically damaged because there's so much crush damage at the front end of this vehicle. So at the yard, the tow operator actually wound up having video, although most of it's black and white, video of this vehicle reigniting, playing possum, reignition occurring in the tow yard while it's under the control in a whole different community from Mountain View, under the control of the tow operator at their storage facility.
If I'm not mistaken, Ron, one of the reignites was 5 days later or something to that effect.
Yeah, 5 days later, the investigators wound up running the probes on the battery and found that the battery still had what's called stranded energy, which is standby juice or energy. 5 days later, it still had stranded energy at the tow yard, which was a whole nother community away from this particular one. So yes.
One of the great things about the EV-Clever app is that we have the manufacturer's information for what to do about stranded energy.
This is the book that we recommend. This is a video that is related to it. This shows and uses the from Atlas Towing shows and uses their video to put together a nice animated story about this reignition rekindle. So this was all done by National Transportation Safety Board. The document that you want to get is that small yellow document. It is NTSB/SR-20/01. Make sure that you, as an employer, make sure that you have this document. It is free. I think it's about 60 pages. It is an excellent document from the federal government, National Transportation Safety Board. It includes the story of the Mountain View Tesla fatality and fire incident. Now, talking about the difference in between plain water, I guess you want to call it plain water and salt water. Back in 2012, we had Superstorm Sandy that came into Port of New Jersey. It flooded for at least a day. It flooded 5,000 vehicles. You can see them in the upper left image, both upper left and upper right, but better in the upper left. You can see them in the background. 5,000 vehicles that had just been delivered by the the boat. The day after the seawater went down, 16 of the vehicles spontaneously caught on fire. Turns out all 16, you see the burnt pile there, all 16 were electric vehicles. So this is where everybody started to say, well, maybe there's a difference between flooding with plain water or normal water and flooding with salt water. So this back since 2012, we have had kind of a heads up on this particular phenomena. This is a story that came out from Florida. It talks about this news reporter. He talked to tow and recovery operators over on his left. Over on the left of the screen, the vehicles, the internal combustion engine vehicles. Here in this yard behind him now, you see all of the electric vehicles that were submerged in flood water in Florida by the hurricane, and how they're spaced out. So that the federal government in their interim guidance talks about they may catch on fire at any time. They also need to be separated from 50 feet from all combustibles. There's an interesting still frame. There's a picture that the electric vehicle caught on fire on the rollback before it left the scene. So the news reporter interviewed a fire chief, assistant fire chief, and talked about what they do. And this was one technique where the fire department learned on the job, learned by doing. This is one technique. They called it a ticking time bomb. They wound up just being able to use copious amounts of water to flood the electric vehicles that caught on fire.
All right, we had somebody ask if we go back and play that again. So I'm gonna run that video, let everybody hear what the footage is.
we doing? I know you'd watch videos, but
So the 50 feet apart requirement is the advice, the guidance from the federal government in the document that we talked about earlier. So this is something coming from Federal Highway Administration.
Yeah, and the 50-foot west, 50-foot in all directions has been since 2012. It's been in the it was in the original interim guidance and it's been repeated every time since. You see that what they don't talk about, you see that in the top image, the electric vehicle off gassing, getting ready to burn or reignite on the rollback, and then down below you see the spacing in that particular tow and storage facility.
And towing operators, in my opinion, you have the absolute right. We'll try to help you if you have issues with this, but you have the absolute right to charge whoever's paying you storage more for that storage for the more spaces that it's taking up. Yeah, that in my opinion, you have the absolute right for that. You look at that bottom picture, it tells it all right there. I've done a horrible job at the beginning of this. Go ahead, Ryan. I did a horrible job at the beginning of this webinar to tell you about our sponsor. The sponsor is EV-Clever app. It's a project of our organization, the American Towing and Recovery Institute. And it's an app that has all kinds of information about electric vehicles, and not only electric vehicles. In the heavy trucks, we have compressed natural gas and hydrogen vehicles as well. But we have all the manufacturer's information, towing, recovery, the emergency response guide, and then we also have all that information, all that information broken down to get to it very quickly. At the end of the next session, we'll have a free code for you for a free 30-day trial. The app costs $9.99 a month or $60 for the whole year. We'll have all kinds of discount codes. We have a team that does research every day. Their whole job is this app. So we're checking for updates, reaching out to manufacturers. We're actually challenging information if a towing operator works with a vehicle and has issues following their suggestion. We address that head on. So if you like this information free flow, consider supporting us by trying the EV-Clever.com app. Do we have any questions from any of the participants from this webinar? I'll take that as a no. We're going to take a short break. We're going to start back at 8 o'clock promptly with part 4. So get yourself something to drink and we'll be right back. There you go.
hey Wes,
Yes.
how you doing?
Good. How about you? Well, welcome back to some and welcome to others. Just going to take a moment and introduce the webinar concept that the American Towing and Recovery Institute is going to work with in 2024. We're still going to do live classes, but we're going to also focus on sharing all of our information in the webinar format. We've started the first Wednesday of the month for training on 7 p.m. Eastern Standard. We did it a month ago. We're doing it this month. We're going to do it again next month and continue on with that. Right now, because it's such a hot topic, we've been focusing on electric vehicles. not only passenger cars, but heavy trucks as well. One of our projects at the American Tow and Recovery Institute is ev-clever.com. It's an app with over 700 passenger vehicles and right at 100 heavy trucks. All the factory information, complete emergency response guide, also broken down into categories. So click, 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 in seconds you can get to the needed information, whether it's submersion, etc. And this is all the information from the manufacturer. So that's who's sponsoring these webinars. Like I say, the hottest topic for education and the towing industry right now is electric vehicles. So that's been our focus. But once we go past that, we're going to also delve into some of the other towing and recovery subjects. Anybody that's been to one of my classes in the last couple of years have noticed a trend that we're focusing on just as much towing as we do recovery. It used to be we focused a lot more on just recovery. And we've changed because that's what the market wants. And we pride ourselves on trying to give the towing industry what they want and need. So we're doing these webinars every Wednesday first Wednesday of every month. We'll be doing these. The subject tonight is electric vehicles. This is going to be part 4. By the end of the week, we'll have 1, 2, and 3 on our website, www.amtowri.org. And you can go to our website and we'll have all these videos available for viewing. As I talked about in the beginning of session 3, we've done a couple different ways with the sound and audio, trying to get the best quality. So we're working on that as well. We're teaching these classes, firefighters and towers, together for many reasons. One of them is both myself and the main instructor this evening believe that firefighters and towers should work closely together when they share issues of common concern. Also, we talk an awful lot about the traffic incident management process, the initiative by the Federal Highway Administration. And they talk about us working together. And what we're trying to do is bring that to some life. So looks like we're right at 8 o'clock straight up and down. So my name is Wes Wilburn. I'm with the American Tow and Recovery Institute. I'm the founder. I'm proud to be here to help share information tonight as one of your instructors. I also feel it's my obligation as one of your instructors to tell you I do not know it all. I'm still learning every day as well. I'd like to take a moment and introduce the main instructor this evening. Ron, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little about your background, please?
Yes, sir. My name is Ron Moore. I live in Plano, Texas, a suburb of Dallas, and I'm a retired firefighter, fire chief, have been involved in the fire service all my life. So my background really is fire, medical, rescue operations at incident scenes.
Me and Ron met about the turn of the century when there was a standard introduced by the NFPA for firefighters and towers cross training. And we've worked together on and off since then. Ron is what I consider to be an expert on electric vehicles, and he's prepared this information that we're sharing with you. So you want to give him a brief summary to get us up to date to where we are, Ron?
What you're looking at here are 2 images. The upper image is a Tesla electric vehicle that had been in Florida in Hurricane Ian, flood damage with salt water, and it is on fire on the rollback. And in the bottom, you see a tow and storage facility where the spaced out vehicles have the compliant 50-foot combustible non-combustible space around them. And then over on the extreme upper right of that image, you see the internal combustion engine vehicles spaced literally door to door. So this was at the end of these are still images that was at the end of a report on ABC after Hurricane Ian with the saltwater flooding in Florida.
I'm trying to advance this, Ron. I'm not sure why it's not. There you go.
What I want to do in part 4 is talk about the lithium ion, which is the chemistry is in the rechargeable batteries. We have lithium ion in cell phones. We have lithium ion in iPads, hovercrafts. In New York City, for example, they're having a big problem with lithium ion in the e-scooters, the e-bike business. So lithium ion is the chemistry of choice. It is rechargeable. It is stored energy, and it is located in these electric vehicles. It is, as of the model year that we're dealing with now, it is the chemistry of choice, not lead acid, not nickel metal hydride, but lithium ion. So I want to talk about the lower right talks about the statistics. I just want to be non-biased. For every 100,000 electric vehicles, there are about 25 fires every year. For every 100,000 ICE vehicles, which is internal combustion engine vehicles, there are about 1,530. So the authorities that study this say there's many more internal combustion engine, gasoline or diesel vehicles that catch on fire and burn compared to the electric vehicles. So in this part 4, we'll talk about how traffic incident management is affected by the choice used by fire rescue in their suppression techniques.
Ron, if I could just make one quick point. Statistics are a funny thing, and I don't know this at all. I'm just looking at the statistics you put down here. I wonder when they talk about for every 100,000 ICE vehicles, I wonder what the year range is. You know, because if you're talking about vehicles that are 20 and 30 years old versus electric vehicles only a few years old, I just think that might be a flawed statistic. Maybe I'm wrong.
It may also be, Wes, the fact that electric vehicle fires make news nationwide as compared to a community may have multiple internal combustion engine vehicle fires in a given day, and it's no big deal because it's happened before.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. All right.
This slide is the key of part 4. These are summary choices that fire rescue may choose. And as tow operators, we need to understand we don't have control over what choice the fire department uses to suppress the fire, but these are the possible ones. And everyone has a different implication, a different result or influence on, particularly on traffic incident management. So go defensive, essentially let it burn. Go offensive, which is the term, I hate to use it, but the word is copious amounts of water. Penetrate the battery. There are tools that will show you that are available for that. Smother that is probably the most popular technique right now in Chicago, in the north central area. Smothering, and particularly with a fire blanket. Packing in wet sand was demonstrated recently in Phoenix, Arizona. It is unheard of anywhere. Submersion is a big deal in Europe as well as here in the United States. And then the tilt and cool technique, I will show you each of these. So we really, as tow operators, don't have much choice, but our work is affected by these generic choices. We'll talk about them. Wes mentioned earlier that what we're talking about, whether it's a large vehicle, class 8, class 4, whether it's a city bus, whether it's a minivan, an SUV, or a sedan, you're talking about lithium ion batteries. Instead of a couple of pounds like a lead acid battery, they're typically 1,000 pounds, typically 400 volt, although Tesla on their Cybertruck now has 800 volt. Porsche on their on one of their electric vehicles has a 900 volt. And then the weight is significant because it throws off, it's almost all of them are floor pan mounted batteries that throw off the center of gravity. With the buses, with the trucks, with the buses, they may be roof mounted, they may be rear mounted, they may be under the chassis, under the frame mounted. And with class 8 class 4 to class 8 trucks. They can be anywhere in the vehicle as well. This real world case study incident occurred in the Baltimore, Maryland area, Towson. This is a one vehicle that has crashed into a center divider area and a sign and caught on fire. So think about for a moment in your community, if you got, if your responders in your community, fire, rescue, medical, law enforcement, for example, got called to a vehicle fire at a crash scene. What happened in this particular situation, it wound up being an electric vehicle. The first responding fire department unit realized that it was an electric vehicle and that it was on fire. They requested back through their dispatch a large capacity tanker, sometimes called a tender, the county's hazardous material unit, as well as they requested a foam unit, which comes from a different station in this area of Maryland. So this is how a simple, I say normal vehicle fire can become very complex. With every responding group coming in, we have no control over that. Every responding group comes in and has an impact on the traffic incident management. So this is not going to be a 30-minute in and done situation. This is going to be a long, drawn out incident as well. This is one of the first incidents that occurred in 2013 in Kent, Washington, outside of Seattle. The road that goes up the hill is an off-ramp from an expressway. This is an electric vehicle that rode over a pipe. The pipe debris in the roadway popped up, punctured the lithium-ion battery. The Kent, Washington Fire Department has 2 pumpers on the scene, and they fought for more than 2 hours to try to extinguish that fire. It was one of the first case studies we had in the fire service of a lithium-ion battery fire, in this case, burning. Indianapolis, Indiana had an incident of all things that it wound up being a double fatality crash, and they crashed into the right next to the television station. So there's the tree that they crashed into with their electric vehicle. There was a driver and a front passenger, both of them. This is the arrival from the fire department. Look at the amount of fire. You can see why citizens might call in and tell your dispatch, your county or city dispatch, I think fireworks are involved. That's lithium-ion battery cells burning. That's example of how the fire may occur. This crash wound up being a double fatality. The fire department, Indianapolis Fire Department, worked at the scene with several different fire suppression elements to put the fire out.
So the little, looked like sparklers or whatnot. Those were all the individual cells of the lithium-ion battery.
Correct. So the cluster stayed together. That's kind of like a module, a cluster of them, and the arcing and sparking that you saw, the fireworks type effect, was the individual cells bursting and exploding. This is an interesting incident. You see the red car on your left. That's just a parked vehicle, but you see one half, the front half of an electric vehicle. This car was stolen from a Tesla dealership in West Hollywood, California. This was on the night of Halloween, Independence. I'm sorry, the night of July 4th. So the car, if you look way in the upper left corner, the kid that stole this Tesla figured out how to hotwire it and get it going. He was being chased through the city of West Hollywood by county sheriffs. In the high-speed chase, he crashed into that pole way up in the top. You see it up in the top right corner. Crashed into that major street light. The back half of the car broke in two. The back half of the car went and stuck into a building and wound up being a church. The front half spun down about almost a block, struck that white car that you see right above the word Loud Labs, and then the driver of the Tesla that was the perpetrator of this whole thing, what was still in this the front half that was on fire when the law enforcement get there. Fire department has not arrived at this point. This is paparazzi world. This is Hollywood, California. So the video that we have of the incident that also shows that arcing and sparking type event. One of the paparazzi photographers went up onto the roof and got like a good aerial view of it. This wound up being the first time anybody had ever been died in a electric vehicle crash, in a Tesla vehicle crash. You can see in front of the white car, there were actually 4 people trapped in that car that had to be rescued. But in front of that white car, you can see the intensity of the fire. It looks like there's 3 there along the center line and a larger one. Those are the battery cells from the Tesla that broke into, when the car broke into, the cell clusters called modules flew out and remained on fire. So after this there is a video that goes along with this. After this particular incident in West Hollywood, go ahead, we can play that.
Those cannot play media.
Okay. So after this particular incident and the Kent, Washington one, the National Fire Protection Association out of Boston, Massachusetts, has a research foundation. They went to the University of Maryland in College Park and had funded a research project to find out how much water do we really need to extinguish these lithium-ion vehicles. So the vehicle that was used was a car shell. It was a reburnable car that they had specially built, and battery B1, B2. B2 is the big one. These were battery only. 2,639 gallons of water was used to put that fire out. They had, during the research work, they had a lithium-ion battery that was burned during the daytime, was put into storage and caught on fire in the middle of the night. They also, this is the first time anybody had ever heard about this reignition situation, and with the National Fire Protection Association on board, NFPA, they wound up coming up with, you need a minimum of 3,000 gallons of water. The typical fire department pumper, maybe you know, but maybe tow operators, you can check with your local fire responders. A typical fire department pumper in a municipal area would be 500 gallons, maybe 750, maybe 1,000 at the most. So to get 3,000, that alone shows you that the fire department would have to go out of their way to summon additional water to make it available if they wanted to combat this electric vehicle battery fire in a conventional way. Now, in the meantime, while we were waiting for the results, this happened in Santa Monica, California. This is it wound up being a Tesla Model S that filled with smoke, which we call smoke, but it's really off-gassing. The husband pulled over, parked, got out, and called 911. Look how low the flames are on this particular manufacturer. They have like blowout panels, fusible links that will vent the fire, but they vent low. So this is a great video to show as a typical example of off-gassing, which is the white smoke or the white gases, which are toxic, as well as the hazard of the fire and how low that lithium-ion battery fire may be to the ground. So the fire department did come in this particular case and put the fire out, but this is a municipal situation in Santa Monica, California, and they actually were able to hook up to a hydrant as necessary. Wes, this is a city structural fire department engine crew. It has 500 gallons of water on board, which would not be enough in itself to completely extinguish the fire in that Model S Tesla. The picture on your left, which is the vehicle in fire, is also an electric vehicle. It's in a municipal street. This is outside of Philadelphia, Lower Merion Township, a suburb of Philadelphia. The owner was driving it. I think he had it by the time of the fire. He had it 3 days. It did start to fill with the smoke, which is the called off gassing, and then it started to catch on fire. 2 volunteer fire department crew companies arrived, one from each direction. Because they're in a municipal setting in a metropolitan Philadelphia area, they were able to extinguish the fire, but they were able to use hydrant supply to put the fire out. This is what's left of that particular vehicle. They wound up 2 supply lines, one hooked to a hydrant from the north, one hooked to a hydrant from the south, and they poured on water on copious, there's that word, copious amounts of water were poured on the vehicle for over 2 hours. If it's electric, if it's electric vehicle burning, it's not going to be a simple in and out 30-minute, and traffic will be back to normal. Look at the residue in the street. It has turned out that the runoff water or items can be dangerous as well. So this may really require several hours worth of work, depending on if it's a rural road or if it's, in this case, a municipal setting. In Spring, Texas, which is a suburb north of Houston, we had an owner drive a little over almost 600 feet in his subdivision with his neighbor in the front seat, trying to show off his electric vehicle. He crashed into a tree and it caught on fire. This is in Spring, Texas. So engine 7 from the fire department arrived. They put the fire out. This is a case that originally was promoted as it must have been full self-driving. It must have been that there was no driver in the vehicle. It must have been on autopilot. The deceased neighbor was still in the front seat on the passenger side, but the driver's seat was empty. After the vehicle incident was studied by National Transportation Safety Board, they found out, in fact, the owner of the vehicle, who also died in the fire, in the crash, was driving at the time it crashed into a tree on that street. Although he was able to wiggle himself clear of this situation, and he died, overcome by smoke, died in the back seat. So there really was no driver in the front seat in this particular situation. Spring, Texas. You can see, as a tow operator, you can see what's left. You've got lithium ion, 1,000 pounds of lithium ion battery damaged in a burnt, crispy critter type vehicle.
So Ron, going back for a second, the question was asked about, you made the statement, the runoff could be, I'm not sure we used the word dangerous or hazardous. Should this be cleaned up by a hazardous material situation?
The answer would be yes. The runoff should be considered hazardous. Yes, the runoff should be considered dangerous. And if the local authority having jurisdiction, which may be county sheriff or city police department, if the authority having jurisdiction decides that they need the resources of a hazmat team, then that would be appropriate. In this particular vehicle fire, which was outside of Philadelphia, before they got the floodlights on, the fire chief told me his firefighters were slipping and sliding all over the place. It's because they were on the cells that were about the size of a C battery. So they were actually walking or crawling or trying to maintain their balance on rollerball bearings, battery cells. So in this particular case, the runoff has now, it never was a big deal in the past, and now it has been determined that the runoff can contain hazardous or dangerous elements. that may be require the health department, it may be require the hazardous material team. It would be up to the authority having jurisdiction at that incident scene.
With all that being said, keep that in mind about you, when you're storing these vehicles as well. That's another reason that the storage needs to be different than a internal combustion engine vehicle.
Also, one thing, Wes, that is of note in this one is you see the B pillar is still intact. It's because the B pillar of this early version Model S electric vehicle, ultra high strength steel, boron steel. So that's why as the thing burned down here, it burned here, and then in Spring, Texas, it burned up pretty severely. You notice that the B pillars are still intact because of the ultra high strength steel.
Boy, that's an excellent point, Ron. That really is an excellent point. When we did the Tesla, made the Tesla display, and your crew was working with you to cut that into that B pillar, got to see how strong that vehicle is right there, and that what's left after the fire, I guess, illustrates that point even better.
And remember, there's a 1,000-pound battery. Here is that same car from Spring, Texas, being loaded on a rollback. 1,000-pound battery with fire damaged cells. The fire department, the fire chief is very adamant. We knocked the fire down in several minutes. He just wants everybody to know that the water on board was able to be adequately applied, and they knocked the fire down. But primarily because it was a fatality incident, the fire department was on scene for another 2.5 hours, flowing enough water to cool the car and to cool the battery. 28,000 gallons of water, and a normal car fire is maybe 500. I say normal internal combustion engine vehicle fire may be 500 gallons of water. This is where tow operators really need to coordinate with their fire crews, volunteer or municipal, it doesn't matter. This is in Coral Gables, which is a suburb of Miami. This homeowner called his 911 dispatch and said, my house is on fire. Really what happened is his electric vehicle in his attached garage caught on fire. So in this particular case, the fire department was able to put the fire out, or at least knock the fire down enough in the electric vehicle to hook onto it. And they used the fire department vehicle to pull the vehicle out. You can see the chains set up. They pulled the vehicle out into the driveway. And so that has to be the philosophy. Let's separate the structure, the garage, and the home. And let's separate that by pulling out, moving or removing the burning electric vehicle. Now, in the fire department that in the city where I live, they have had a garage fire where the vehicle caught on fire in the garage, electric vehicle. They were able to do this exact strategy where they separated. In the vehicle that separated, that pulled the burnt electric vehicle out was a fire department vehicle. It was a Tahoe, but this could be where the tow operator could come in handy if they saved your right spot. Show your fire rescue operators what large J hooks are. Show them what a chain bridle might be. Show them some way that they can quickly go in and grab onto the burnt vehicle and bring it out into the driveway so we can deal with it. The fire department can deal with 2 different fire incidents: the burning electric vehicle in a driveway detached from the home, and then the rest of the crew can deal with the structure itself.
Yeah, it's a great subject for cross training, isn't it?
It really is. Now the fire department that I work with now, their newest engine actually has a receiver hitch on the side with a detachable winch design to, if the tow operator can't get there and can't get their vehicle positioned properly, which is very difficult to do at a house fire on a single street. So the fire department has the ability to hook onto the burnt vehicle, pull it out of the vehicle of the garage, and extinguish the fire at that point. So it is just a great joint training operation. We're going to have to separate the burnt or burning electric vehicle, bring it out, somehow pull it out of the vehicle. And in this particular case in Coral Gables, By the time it took them to pull the vehicle out and had this firefighter try to force the frunk, which is the new name for the hood, it reignited. So that's all right, because now I got a crew with a sustained water supply that can deal with this fire out in the driveway. And I got other crews that can deal with the burnt garage and the attached home separately. So we need to work together as a team to figure out what do we have to hook onto this electric vehicle and how can we get it out of the garage quickly. That has happened again and again and again. Colorado, this one in Florida, all over, and here in Texas as well. Now the white vehicle that you see crossways in the garage doesn't belong there. That's a neighbor's electric vehicle. It was traveling, the federal government reported it was traveling 85 miles an hour on a residential street in Lake Forest, California. It crashed through the ditch, through their driveway, crashed in, took out the load-bearing column in the garage. They put the fire out. They brought that white electric vehicle outside. And there is the absolute best example of off-gassing. Vehicles that are not fully on fire per se, they give away what we call a smoke. That gas is lethal. That gas, that off-gassing gas, is toxic. So there's the best video example I have of off-gassing. Now it went on and on. Okay, anybody looking at that car sitting in the driveway, something's not, hey, something's not right. Let's deal with this. The off-gassing continued. They thought they had a chemical fire. It went on for more than 45 minutes. And the next step is this, which goes back to just what we saw in Santa Monica, California in that video. On this particular vehicle, which is a Tesla manufacturer, the blowout holes or the burn through holes are low in the battery box, and they're on the sides, and they'll vent with the jet flame through that port. So a perfect example of where the separation information comes from in the interim guidance recommendation.
I notice here there's a note about looking up the information on Tesla's website, which is a tool. One of the things we can offer with the EV Clever app is to get you to that information a whole lot quicker. Going to some of these manufacturers' websites, you're looking at commercials and everything else. So I just wanted to mention that.
This was an interesting one here. The tow truck operator actually was burnt. He was running the controls of his rollback from on the driver's side, and they figured the battery was jiggled around a bit. The fire department said, "Hey, hold it right here," because it gave them the best access to the underside, that low area of the vehicle. The National Transportation Safety Board has concluded their investigation, and it is available, Lake Forest, California. It is a free document. It is online. It is an excellent case study. Garage fire, separation is necessary, and then dealing with the structure and dealing with the vehicle itself. Wes, if nothing else, it reinforces the need for separation recommended in the interim guidance, or dealing with somehow you don't have combustibles within 50 feet. You can see combustibles within 50 feet would be exposed.
Absolutely.
There have been several situations. A recent one occurred in Belgium where the electric vehicle off-gassed. It never gave any open flame, but it was lethal. That vapor, that smoke, what we call off-gassing, what we call smoke, was critical. And then there's another reminder of the runoff and how you want to deal with that. If the tow operator just simply takes the vehicle away, that may be one solution. If the authority having jurisdiction wants additional people involved, look at the roadway. That roadway is shut down until proven otherwise. Off-gassing and water runoff. Now this talks about submersion. This was an electric vehicle. This happens to be a BMW i8. You can barely see if you look by the windshield of the vehicle. It was in the showroom. It caught on fire in Tilburg, the Netherlands. The operators were able to get it outside, call the fire department. The fire department in the Netherlands arrived. Their solution is submersion. So this is a big deal in several countries in Europe as well, submersion. So what they do, they bring in this crane, they bring in a crane with a sling. They will hoist this electric vehicle up and put it into essentially a roll-off dumpster, watertight roll-off dumpster filled with water. This is an example from Belgium of a different incident involving, this is a fire department delivered container, waterproof, watertight container with a vehicle that was originally on fire. It is in submersion, and the fire departments that go with this philosophy want submersion for 24 hours. So again, reference where you would be as a tow operator, reference where your traffic incident management plan, law enforcement, traffic management people would be involved in this particular situation if this burnt vehicle had to sit completely submerged for 24 hours. Now, Mitsubishi is the only manufacturer of all the hybrid or all the lithium-ion battery manufactured cars that talks about submersion. And in their plug-in hybrid electric vehicle ERG, Emergency Response Guide, on page 43, they are the only ones at that time that said, yes, you can submerge it, but you really don't need to go up to above the roof. You really just need to submerge it enough to get the lithium-ion battery, let's say 1,000-pound lithium-ion battery pack, which is under the car in the underwater. So that's what this depiction, this artist rendering is all about.
And they're the only ones that are recommending submersion, you're saying?
At this time, yes.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
So we will innovate. If things get in our way, we will solve the problem. This is at a salvage yard. This is where you can buy vehicles or you can buy parts. This is a electric vehicle, again, happens to be a Tesla, that had been involved in an incident 3 weeks prior to this particular incident. It caught on fire at the salvage yard. The fire department, Sacramento Fire Department, was called. They didn't have enough water on the vehicle to put the fire out, so they wound up having the yard owners and operators dig essentially a low pit or a low trench, and then they put the burnt electric vehicle in the trench, in the pit, filled it with water, just enough to put the battery underwater, and that was what they used in that particular incident. It was revolutionary. It was like, why didn't I think of that? Now, this is, if you have $30,000 to spend, go for it. You're luckier than I am. This is Rosenbauer, which is a company originally from Austria that makes electric fire trucks. For example, they make the best battery extinguishing, BEST, battery extinguishing system technology. What they do is it's a two-piece unit. Here in the foreground is the control unit. You slide this piercing bayonet with hoses and everything attached underneath the vehicle, and when you pressurize it, you see the green cylinders in the foreground. You pressurize it with air, and this piercing bayonet pops up, penetrates the battery box, punctures it, and then you just turn on the water supply to it, and it allegedly floods it with water. So there are a couple fire departments in the United States that have purchased the Rosenbauer BEST, BEST system. One of the again, I'm only trying to be realistic about it. One of the things that the BEST system does not really do a good job at would be a car on its side, a car on its roof, and they don't really do a good job of representing the fact that most new battery packs are what's called structural. They are completely self-contained. The individual cells, which may be bigger than a D cell or a C cell, the individual cells are packed in this battery box, footlocker type situation. And then the next slide shows that it's filled with foam. So there isn't any space for this to operate. So penetrating the battery, this is another example. You take this metal. No, I should say the youngest member of the team that is replaceable and doesn't know any better takes this metal bayonet and pierces through the floorboard, pierces through the battery box top, and penetrates the battery, and then that yellow hose simulates the water line. So there are vendors that are selling tools designed to penetrate batteries. However, at this time, just realize that it may be what the fire suppression crew has decided to do. It may not be a recommended practice of the manufacturer of that burnt or burning electric vehicle. Mirror extinguishing lance. There are several of these units available. Most of them have come from Europe initially. So one guy holds on to the lance, another guy beats it with a mallet, and then you get it to penetrate through the floorboard, through the battery, top of the battery box, and it's supposed to fill the airspace between the cells with water and put the fire out. Well, if the battery cells have airspace, they may not, because the new trend is to make them foam filled, to completely fill that battery box. It's called a structural battery box. So this may wind up being old school and may not be the new school technique. Penetrating the battery. This is another example. The firefighter standing closest to the vehicle has a rotary drill. It has a carbide, water and a carbide mixed to it, and it's designed to cut through it. It's almost like a giant keyhole saw. It's designed to penetrate the battery box, flow water into it. I want to mention the firefighter on the right that you see. One of the things that all the manufacturers and all the vendors of these different types of equipment recommend is to use a thermal imaging camera. They used to be thousands and thousands of dollars, $20,000 or more. Now they're getting to be more common as a fire suppression tool. So find out from your local fire suppression department if they have thermal imaging, because it may be something that you want to, they want to invest in to monitor the hot spots. You're trying to monitor anything that is 250 degrees Fahrenheit or hotter, because that shows that the individual battery cells in that box may be still in thermal runaway, may be misbehaving. So thermal imaging is something that everybody agrees on. Now, this is an example of, for example, on the Tesla Model Y, this is an example of a structural battery pack. The cells are in there. It is foam filled there. So if a crew decided to penetrate the battery, there is no airspace for the water to flow in. So just an update, so you can say I told you so.
All right. A lot of good information. Really appreciate you sharing it with us this evening, Ron. Is anybody that's, are there any questions we can answer? That's definitely the sound of silence. Well, on behalf of American Towing and Recovery Institute, I'd like to thank everybody for taking busy time out of their evening to attend this webinar. First Wednesday of every month, we're going to continue on. Next Wednesday, we'll have a part 5 of EV, which will be a little bit more information and a conclusion. Yeah, first Wednesday next month. We will have these up on our website. All 4 parts we hope to have up by the end of the week. Go to www.ev-clever.com. There's a code here for a free 30-day trial. I really would appreciate it if you try us out. Ron, I want to thank you for being here and sharing information with us this evening, and we'll look forward to working with you first Wednesday of next month.
Thanks, Wes. I will be available. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks, everybody, for being here and listening this evening. Check out our website. Our main website is www.amtowri.org. Appreciate everybody being here. Stay safe. We'll look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate y'all.
Thanks, guys. That was good info. Back to work we go.